You've heard of Nostradamus, although I'm probably butchering his name. Nostradamus, a French seer who would look into the future and foretell things. Well, I have a little saying that I use, and I apply it to myself. And what I say is, Benton, you are a lousy Nostradamus. And I get to use this quite often. And I think it's a tool that might be helpful in your life too. Trying to pretend that I'm Nostradamus happens any time that I look at something and I think inside myself that I know how things are going to turn out. And when I look at something and then I can project into the future and imagine that I know how things are going to turn out, I can then get angry or frustrated. I'll give you two examples. One that most of us are very familiar with is politics. So right now we have Trump and Hillary, and there's a lot of us out there that are pretty sure that we're Nostradamus. And we know that if Trump becomes president, the nation's going to just fall into ruin. Or if Clinton becomes president, the nation is going to fall into ruin. And with that conviction strong inside of us, we can start to become very angry, very frustrated about the political situation. And it's interesting because our media plays on this. Essentially, our media infects us with this polarization, this drama, because they know that many of us like to pretend that we're Nostradamus. And if they can trigger that, and they can get us predicting and give us their own predictions, we'll latch onto that, and it creates a cycle of frustration. Essentially, an infection that we willingly take into us, although usually unknowingly. And once we do, we start to become polarized. And this literally has friends angry with each other about Clinton or Trump. I'm not sure about you, but I've found that if I try to predict what will happen if a certain person becomes president, I'm usually not very correct, because the president is not actually the ruler of the universe. They're just one branch of a very complex government that is subject to social and economic and political and media forces. And as that unfolds, it's hard to say what that person's presence as president is actually going to do. So I have to remember, I am not Nostradamus. So here's the key. In this case, if I realize that I'm a lousy Nostradamus, then I can't get so charged up about what I think is going to happen if so-and-so becomes president. And then, when my friend, who's on the opposite side of the political spectrum, let's say, wants to talk to me about their political feelings, I'm not going to be so reactive. I'm not going to be so dramatic. In this way, I become less ruled by my frustration and my irritation, and I'm no longer willingly taking on that media-fed infection that is all too happy to come into my mind. Because, if I'm all frustrated and I'm all pumped up about things, I'm going to tend to go back and watch the same networks that have pumped me up and got me frustrated. Frustration likes to feed itself. And so they will just keep me on their hook as long as they can. we all, of course, can break free of that hook. And besides turning off the television more, one of the best ways to do that is to not pretend that we're Nostradamus. Another big example for me is with children. And I find myself doing this, and I watch other parents doing this. We see a behavior in our child. They're not eating their meal at dinner. Suddenly we generalize that, and it expounds out into, oh my gosh, my child is just going to be a junk food addict, and they're going to have the worst diet in the world, and they're going to get cancer when they're 30 because they're not eating their broccoli. Again, I've become Nostradamus. I've looked out and imagined a future, and really the only place that future exists is in my imagination head. And then I start to get frustrated about it. And then what? Of course, I can come down on the child and start trying to impose rules or get angry with them. So, there we go. It's happening with kids. I remember with my older daughter, Mirabelle, that she went through a period of probably 6 or 8 months of being exceedingly shy. And there were many times when I played Nostradamus. I thought, boy, we've got to help her through this. Otherwise, she's going to be a wallflower in the corner and not be able to speak to anybody. Now she's extremely gregarious and outgoing. That may not stick either. She's an evolving creature, and when I try to look at a behavior, and this is very important, if I try to look at a behavior and I generalize out, and then I try to correct that behavior by forcing something on her, and I say, you are not leaving this table until you eat your broccoli, we all know what happens when someone tries to force a behavior on us, right? In general, we rebel against it. And we see that with kids, and we see that with teens, and even with adults. And so, as soon as I come down on that behavior, and I try to force her to eat her broccoli, I may be creating the very negative event that I think I'm predicting. And if I do that, then I convince myself even more that I'm Nostradamus. When really, actually, I've just been messing with the pool in a way, and in a quite predictable way, interestingly, that's going to get somebody to rebel and create the negative behavior that I was afraid of them having. Please note that this does not mean not listening to our intuitions. A lot of us have very strong intuitions that give us signals about a situation and help guide us in an appropriate way in our lives. Playing Nostradamus, whenever we're doing that, it's going to tend to be attached to a feeling of resistance or frustration or anger. It happens when I look at something and I say, I know that that's going to create such and such a behavior 10 years down the road. Just wait. I told you so. And when I feel that, I feel like, tension. Like, why won't they listen to me? Why won't they change? I know I'm right. It's very different than having an intuition about something and acting from there. That does not tend to be frustration or anger based. So, very important distinction there between intuition and playing Nostradamus. Notice it in yourself. Do you ever play Nostradamus? Share in the comments some of the times or places that you might do it. Sometimes we're right in our predictions, and that tends to fuel that part of us, that I told you so part. And as we let our ego cling on to that, it gets stronger and stronger, the Nostradamus thing, and we can forget that 90% of the time we're lousy Nostradamuses. And that's the basic tool, is just to keep that little phrase, I'm a lousy Nostradamus, in your toolbox, If you feel yourself being frustrated or angered by something, and you find yourself predicting and generalizing, then you can say, oh yeah, Kenton, remember, you're a lousy Nostradamus. And just saying that usually puts a little smile on my face, breaks me out of any frustration I was feeling, and allows me to see the situation more clearly. If I don't really know how something right now is going to affect the future, I'm able to step back and observe it with more clarity instead of just getting lost and tangled in frustration. That's the power of this tool. Please share in the comments if you give it a try. Talk with you soon.